Get ready for your weekly dose of pixie dust with Disney Coast to Coast.
Hey folks, and welcome to Disney Coast to Coast, the ultimate unofficial Disney fan podcast. I'm Jeff DePauli, and welcome to the House of Mouse headlines brought to you by laughingplace.com, your up-to-date resource for the latest Disney news every day of the week. This episode is being released on April 7th, 2021, and here's what's been going on in the world of Disney recently. An inclusive audio announcement at Tokyo Disneyland, alcoholic beverage options expanding at Disneyland Park, and a new National Treasure series heading to Disney+. It's all coming your way right after this. If you're looking for that perfect, magically inspired gift for a loved one, or just looking to treat yourself, be sure to check out Who's Its and What's Its. Who's Its and What's Its is celebrating its 10th anniversary, and they continue to release new, magically inspired merch on a regular basis. But don't worry, because their classics, like one of my favorites, the Neverland Beanie, is still available as well. And if you simply use code DCTC at checkout, you're going to save 15% off your entire order at who'sitswhatsits.com. So go ahead, click on the link in this episode's description, and don't forget to use code DCTC to save.
Hear the latest news from the Walt Disney Company in today's House of Mouse headlines.
First up this week, with Disneyland Paris still temporarily closed, the resort has announced plans to celebrate its upcoming anniversary virtually. On April 12th, Disneyland Paris ambassador Giona Privetti will discuss the resort's past, present, and future with Imagineers Yves Benvetta and Beth Clapperton, Vice President of Entertainment David Duffy, and more. So get ready to celebrate 29 years of dreams with Disneyland Paris on Monday, April 12th. In other international park news, Tokyo Disneyland has made a change to their in-park announcements in an effort to be more inclusive. Now, instead of English announcements beginning with ladies and gentlemen, boys and girls, they instead use the gender-neutral hello everyone. According to the Japan Times, some attraction announcements have also been updated, with the goal of having them all changed in the near future. In a statement, a spokesperson for the Oriental Land Company said that the adjustment was made for all guests to continue enjoying their time at the parks. At this time, there's no indication whether other Disney parks could follow suit. Another incident involving guests upset by Walt Disney World's COVID-19 precautions has recently come to light. In February, a 47-year-old Louisiana man was arrested after refusing a required temperature check at Disney Springs and declining to leave the property. Reports indicate that the man also argued that he couldn't be charged with trespassing because he'd spent $15,000 to visit. The Orange County Sheriff's Office felt differently and escorted the man to jail, where his temperature was taken. The moral of the story is, to quote Phil DeFranco, "Don't be stupid, stupid." Earlier this year, Disney announced that the Jungle Cruise attractions at Disneyland and Walt Disney World would be receiving updates. Now, those changes are already underway at Magic Kingdom. However, as Imagineer Zach Ridley shared on Instagram, the ride will remain open during the transition, with show scenes being changed out in phases over the coming months. As evidence of this, guest reports show that the Trader Sam head salesman audio animatronic was removed from the ride earlier this week. Speaking of the Disneyland Resort, the state of California has released more specific theme park reopening guidelines. Among the most interesting tidbits is that while indoor rides must be limited to no more than 15 minutes, all queuing must be done in outdoor settings with social distancing. Elsewhere, the guidelines state that concession stands must be accompanied by additional designated and shaded eating areas, and food and/or drink consumption will not be permitted while queuing. Additionally, as previously mentioned, admittance to theme parks will be limited to only California residents under the current guidelines regardless of what tier the county is in. Currently, the Disneyland Resort theme parks are set to reopen on April 30th. Just weeks after moving from the purple tier to the red tier, Orange County has now qualified for the orange tier under California's current measurements. For Disneyland, this means that the parks will be able to operate at 25% capacity instead of the 15% limit for counties in the red tier. Additionally, the orange tier guidelines allow for indoor dining at theme parks up to 25% capacity. Hopefully this status will remain or be upgraded by the time Disneyland and Disney California Adventure are ready to welcome back guests in just a few weeks. When Oga's Cantina at Star Wars Galaxy's Edge opened, it was the first place in Disneyland Park where guests could purchase alcohol outside of the famed Club 33. However, it seems as though that will soon be changing. Buried in a Best Bites post from the Disney Parks blog, it was revealed that the Blue Bayou would soon begin serving beer, wine, and mixed drinks, such as the specialty Hurricane cocktail. According to the post, these enhanced offerings fit right in with the story and spirit of the Blue Bayou and reflect what many of our guests have requested. The rollout of alcohol at Disneyland Park is similar to what occurred a few years ago at Magic Kingdom, with beer and wine offerings first being exclusive to Be Our Guest before expanding to other table service locations. Therefore, don't be too surprised if other park dining spots follow Blue Bayou's lead in the coming months. A restructuring at Walt Disney Imagineering has resulted in new roles for Bob Weiss and Barbara Bauza. While Weiss was previously president of Walt Disney Imagineering, he now has the lengthened title WDI President Creative and New Experiences. Meanwhile, Bauza has been named the president of Walt Disney Imagineering for Business Management, Design, and Development. The move is somewhat reminiscent of the Walt Disney Company's recent restructuring of their media and entertainment units that separated the content creation entities from the distribution and commercialization side of things. Congratulations to both Bob and Barbara on their new roles. Get ready for another scavenger hunt across America because Disneyland's National Treasure franchise is plotting a comeback. Disney Plus has reportedly ordered a 10-episode series inspired by the Nicolas Cage films. This time around, we'll follow a new character named Jess Morales, who's on a quest to uncover her own family history. The show is being penned by franchise veterans Marianne and Cormac Wibberley, with Mira Nair directing. Of note, news of the show does not negate development of the third film in the series, which is still being written by Chris Bremner. The cast of ABC's Wonder Years reboot is continuing to come together. While Daniel Stern played an older Kevin Arnold narrating the original series, Don Cheadle has been tapped to narrate the updated show. Cheadle will portray an adult Dean Williams reflecting on his upbringing, with Alicia Williams playing the younger Dean on screen. A pilot order for this new version of the Wonder Years is in place, with Fred Savage set to direct and Sladen Patterson writing and producing the series. The already impressive cast for Marvel's upcoming film Thor: Love and Thunder has apparently added another major star. Deadline reports the Gladiator's Russell Crowe is set to appear in the film, although the role is expected to be a minor cameo. Nevertheless, Crowe joins other big names including Natalie Portman, Christian Bale, and of course Chris Hemsworth in the sequel. Thor: Love and Thunder is currently slated for a May 2022 release. Disney fans with SiriusXM subscriptions may want to listen up as a new music channel, Disney Hits, has arrived on the service. In addition to playing everyone's all-time favorite Disney music from movies, television shows, and more, listeners can expect special themed hours and celebrity guest hosts. While the development is not actually related, it's worth noting that the arrival of Disney Hits comes after the recent closure of Radio Disney, which played squeaky clean versions of modern pop hits as opposed to a purely Disney music lineup. In any case, if you're a SiriusXM subscriber, be sure to tune your dial or SiriusXM app to channel 302 to enjoy Disney Hits. Alrighty folks, it's that time where I gotta bring in Kyle Burbank from laughingplace.com to chat about some of the latest news. Hello, Kyle.
Hey, Jeff.
Hello.
I'm more excited than that sounded, I promise.
Alrighty, are you ready to talk about some Disneyland Forward?
Yeah, I am, because it's probably one of the most confusing news stories to come out in the past couple of weeks, and so I feel like we need to talk about it to do it justice.
Yeah, now this kind of came out right after the last House of Mouse headline, so this might be, kind of older news at this point, but it is still totally worth talking about. There is a website, which I didn't realize, but actually DisneylandForward.com is an official website where basically they're saying the Disneyland Resort is facing planning restrictions that limit its ability to bring new experiences to the Anaheim Resort. With bold planning and leadership, Disneyland Resort could be poised to grow again, bringing jobs and new lands and adventures to Anaheim. Now, so basically, it's interesting timing, it's an interesting concept. Listen, we know, this is no secret, that the Disneyland Resort wants to expand. The last time we heard this was that the big, was a 4-diamond or 4-star resort that they were going to do that got shut down by the city of Anaheim.
Yeah, the 4-diamond hotel. And before that, we also had remember the Eastgate project, which was going to go over Harbor Boulevard.
Oh, yeah, that's right. The parking structure or something, right?
Yeah, then that moved over to, they were doing everything over on the other side, and then both of those got canceled. So not the first time we've heard about some sort of expansion that then died a quick death.
Yeah, and that was always because the city of Anaheim was the one to say no. They wanted what? Disney was trying to get tax breaks and stuff, and the city was like, no, we're not going to give you a tax break to do this. So they all had their reasons, but I find this timing to be really interesting because let's face it, the Disneyland Resort has been closed for over a year now. They're getting ready to reopen, and what it feels like to me is Disneyland being like, okay, Anaheim, you had a good year to see what it's like without us. You want to play nice? That's what it feels like, right?
Yeah, that's a really good point. But I think what's important to note about this plan is that unlike some of those other times, they're not asking for any money. They're not asking for any tax breaks, and they're not asking for any new land. They're only asking to use the land that they already have in different ways.
Yes. So they basically have, they have certain land that they can use for parking structures, others they can use for hotels, others for shopping, others for theme parks. And for them to change that, it affects taxes, it affects pollution. And they're basically saying, we want to be able to make the resort that we want to make with our land. So how about, we compromise here? Which I think is pretty reasonable, right?
Yeah, I mean, it definitely sounds like it. And if you look at the concept art, it's a little confusing, but basically what they're looking to do is expand Disney California Adventure and Disneyland, but just using it in more creative ways to where there might be a land carved out for a hotel. And they want to be able to kind of, sneak some theme park square footage in there and things like that, and vice versa.
Yeah, I think that the concept art is nothing, to be completely honest. I think
the concept art, well, here's the thing. Not only is the concept art pretty much fake, but also all the projects they list, I don't think there are any solid plans for any of them coming to the resort. I think it's mostly just like, here's cool stuff that's happening at other resorts. Wouldn't it be cool if cool stuff could come here too?
Yeah, because they mentioned the Frozen Land that's happening, where, Hong Kong?
Tokyo Disney Sea. Oh, well, there's one in Hong Kong, but they're talking about the Tokyo ones, the Peter Pan, the Frozen and Tangled.
Yeah, so they mentioned those specifically. I'd be surprised if that ends up being what they want to do with it. It was interesting because it kind of connected the parks in a way in the concept art. Did you see this?
Yeah, there's just some weird tunnels that they have kind of going from one thing to the other. Not tunnels, but just the concept art is very strange.
Yeah, but I mean, I think it's always good to have, the option to expand it. Listen, it's the reason Walt Disney bought the land in Florida, because during his time, he felt landlocked by Anaheim and felt like he had very little control over Disneyland Resort or Disneyland Park. So, it all makes sense. I hope it works out well. I do feel like this has a better chance of happening, not the way that they're saying. I don't think necessarily a Frozen Land and stuff, but I do think the chances of a park expansion, they're talking about taking the Toy Story lot and making that an extension. I don't know. There's been talk about, does this mean third gate? I don't know. Do you think that there's a chance of that?
I think it actually means the opposite. There's definitely some confusing wording in the press release and on the concept art where they're like possible theme park, possible immersive theme park or whatever. I think they're using the term theme park to mean theme park attractions and not another gate. So I think that part's confusing. But I think they are mostly clear that this would be expansions of the current parks and not maybe another physical gate, but not another separate ticket entry theme park.
Yeah, it also sounded like they wanted to definitely do more shopping district sort of stuff. Maybe head in a direction more of Disney Springs than downtown Disney.
Or kind of having both. It sounds kind of what you were talking about, the Toy Story thing, it looks like what they're going to try to do down there is more of a play towards getting business from the convention center. And so in that, I think that's kind of where the Disney Springs stuff could come up, which I'm sure Garden Walk is very excited about that prospect.
Listen, I've been to Garden Walk once in my life. It was to go to a 90s night at House of Blues. So I guess the locals, it would affect them, but like as somebody who drives into Anaheim for Disneyland, I'm not going to Garden Walk for any reasons. So, they're not gaining or losing my business.
I think the biggest thing about this is that it's exciting in that it will hopefully lead to more Disney attractions. And they even call out the fact that if they're forced to stay with the way things are, they're going to have to tear down older things that we all love in order to replace them with new things. So I think it's exciting in the fact that if this goes through, they'll have a little bit more flexibility in order to build more things. However, it's also unexciting because like you're saying, I wouldn't get too wrapped up into anything that's actually in this document as far as projects.
Well, once again, like I said before, the problem has always been the city of Anaheim saying no, or I shouldn't say they're saying no. They're saying, no, we're not going to give you tax breaks, or no, we're not going to compromise in certain situations. So it's not, I won't put all the blame on the city of Anaheim, but I think that, having this website, making this announcement, doing it right before, right after a year of closure, I think this is all putting pressure on the city of Anaheim, very much the way that they put pressure on the governor to be like, will you let us reopen? It's like, public, hey, we want to reopen. Hey, public, we want to expand. We don't want to close your favorite rides to make new ones. Talk to vote in the right city officials to play nice with us. So it feels like pressure is what it feels like.
And they kind of have. I mean, that's also something that should be noted is, back in the day, Disney had fairly friendly city council. Then it kind of went the other way. And now it's kind of back to the middle, I think, leaning towards Disney favorable. At least, the mayor, I think, is a friendly. So I think there's a possibility that this will be able to happen, especially because, like we said, if they're not asking for tax abatements, just like, they actually canceled all those deals with Anaheim. So they're not getting any special tax breaks anymore. So as long as financials are out of it, I think it makes it a little bit easier to get approved publicly. Like I can't imagine, aside from people who are going to complain about fireworks anyway, I can't imagine Anaheim residents being upset because Disney is putting a dark ride in a place that's zoned for a hotel.
Yeah, it's so interesting to me that the city of Anaheim thinks that like Disneyland is problematic. Like you are literally on the map because of this place. Like you would not get so many dollars into your city if it weren't. So it always amazes me when there's issue. Like if I were an elected official there, I'd be like, you have to play nice with Disneyland. Sure, maybe not give them everything they want. Don't let them walk all over you, but recognize the fact that your city matters because of the Disneyland Resort. And that's crazy to me. The one thing that this kind of does upset me about is if they have this much land and they want to use it for theme park purposes, we should have gotten a Star Wars theme park and not a land inside Disneyland. That should have happened. Just saying.
It still can. You can annex.
How ridiculous would it be to have a Star Wars theme park plus Galaxy's Edge in Disneyland plus Star Tours over in Tomorrowland? No. No,
that's not what I'm saying. I'm saying you can build the Star Wars theme park and then
connect it to
Galaxy's Edge is no longer part of Disneyland.
Just cut it off. That's the edge.
Chop it.
That'd be a little, that'd be crazy.
Do take that walkway and turn into like a Hogwarts Express sort of situation.
Or just bring the goats back. How about that?
Yeah. Because, if there's one thing that's more popular than Disneyland and Anaheim, it's animals in theme parks for entertainment. That goes over so well.
People love petting zoos. People love it. Anyway, let's move on to Disney Cruise Line. They're doing some Magic at Sea staycationing. Basically, Disney Cruise Line has announced that the new Magic at Sea packages for UK residents only. The staycation packages will be 2, 3, and 4 night cruises from the UK. Bookings for the cruises will begin in April. And basically, during the staycation at sea, you'll be immersed in Disney storytelling aboard the Disney Magic cruise ship with all of the entertainment, dining, and recreation activities currently available on the Disney Magic. And of course, you'll get some photos of Marvel characters, Captain Mickey, a royal promenade of Disney princesses, and Toy Story friends. So this is another bit of good news. Listen, Disney Cruise Line, cruise lines in general are in trouble right now as far as legally being able to run. This was a little surprising to me because I kept hearing about tests that were going to need to be done in order to get to, I feel like even this point, it certainly does seem like they're never going to leave the ship. This is take a cruise out into the ocean and come back to the same location, right?
Right. And see, that's actually what's interesting to me is that, I don't know if you know this or not, but cruise lines in the United States, if they're not, I forget what the exact term is, but if they're not American, so the ships that Disney owns, they're not registered in America. They're usually registered elsewhere. And if that's the case, if it's not an American ship, it has to, that's why, did you ever notice there's not itineraries that go from like Florida to New York without stopping somewhere else? They have to stop outside of the country before they can come back to the United States. So they actually can't do this in America.
Wow.
I don't think.
Interesting. I didn't know that. I hadn't heard that. I had just heard that in order for the cruise business to get back in order, they were going to do something like the ships were essentially going to have to be docked, and they were going to have to do practice runs where they would do a 3 or 4 day cruise, but never actually leave the port. At which point, and from what I understand, they're going to actually be looking for volunteers to do this, because basically the CDC would be on board watching and making sure that everything's going as planned. And if they were going to do that, I would have 100% volunteered to be part of that test run. For me, going out into the ocean or even going somewhere else isn't the excitement of a Disney cruise. It's being on the ship. So it sounds like they're kind of, or maybe this is why it's happening in the UK. Maybe the UK is not making that a thing, or maybe they'll be doing that before this goes. I don't know. It's really interesting, but I'm really happy to see that it's happening again. I think it's great.
Yeah, I think it's definitely an interesting thing. I feel like it's got to be something with what the UK is allowing right now. A little surprising to me because I feel like every time I hear about stuff over there, it's been a little bit more hectic
strict
than where.
Yeah.
Well, I don't know about strict, but yeah, I thought that they were still having some issues. But granted, I don't pay that much attention to what's happening in the United Kingdom as much as I should try, but. Yeah, I think it's cool that, Disney is able to do something, and I'm sure the people in the UK appreciate it. But I think it has to do with what they allow, both as far as the guidelines on the cruise, but then also just being able to, make that loop and go right back to the same country. I think that's probably a big factor as well.
Yeah, so pretty exciting. Of course, it's only one of their ships, and there's still a long way to go before Disney Cruise Line gets back to, the way we know and love it. But this is a step in the right direction. So more good news this week. This is 2 weeks in a row where we're talking about good news, additions. Is the real world coming back?
Hopefully.
It's very exciting. So, that's all I got to say for this week. Anything you want to add before we get going?
No, I think that's pretty much it.
So thank you, Kyle. I'll see you in a couple more weeks to talk more Disney news.
All right, talk to you then.
To read more about any and all of the stories you've heard here today, simply visit the show notes at DisneyCoastToCoast.com or find the link to the show notes in this episode's description. You've heard the news, and now I want to hear from you and what you have to say about it. Call 818-860-2569, leave a voicemail sharing your thoughts, and you may just hear yourself on a future episode of Disney Coast to Coast. Once again, that's 818-860-2569, or simply look in this episode's description for the phone number, along with a link for some free gifts from me to you. On next week's episode, I have a great conversation with recently retired Imagineer Kevin Rafferty, who worked at Walt Disney Imagineering for over 40 years. And to hear it early, that episode will be available very soon for members of the DCTC community over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC. The easiest way to make sure you don't miss any of the magic is by following Disney Coast to Coast on Spotify, Apple Podcasts, or wherever you listen to podcasts. Wherever you search, don't forget it's Disney with a Z, Coast to Coast. As always, thank you to those of you who support the show on Patreon. You make all of this possible. If you enjoyed these honest conversations about Disney and have the means, please consider becoming a member of the DCTC community over at patreon.com/DisneyCTC for far less than the cost of a churro. Plus, you'll gain rewards. You can find that link in this episode's description. Other than that, folks, have a magical day. Bye!
Thanks for listening to Disney Coast to Coast. Have a magical day.
Disney Coast to Coast is produced and hosted by Jeff DePauli. Learn more about the podcast and become a supporter at DisneyCoastToCoast.com. This podcast is part of the DePodcast Network. Learn more about this show, plus find more quality and entertaining podcasts at depodcastnetwork.com. That's DEPodcastnetwork.com.